I rise today for the final time representing the great people of Indiana here in the United States Senate. My 6 years representing Hoosiers in this body, and the 6 I spent as congressman for the 2nd District of Indiana before this, have been among the great honors of my life. I am the grandson of immigrants who came here with nothing except the dream of America, that any opportunity can come true, that if you work hard, you can accomplish anything. My dad was in the CCCs. For all of our young pages here who have no idea what the CCCs are, it was the Civilian Conservation Corps. For teenagers your age back in the Depression, who were asked to go and try and help raise money for their family so that the other family members could eat. And my dad was shipped to Idaho to build bridges. Today we call that infrastructure. Back then we said it was building bridges. And he built bridges all throughout the Pacific Northwest. Having grown up on the Lower East Side of New York City and having never been west of the Hudson River in his life till that point. But it was America that gave him that chance. My children, or my brothers and sisters, we were the first generation to ever go to college. But that's how America works, is that you work hard and each generation builds on the next. We're so lucky to live in this country that is so blessed and gives us this opportunity. But we have a responsibility here to meet the things that have been given to us. And I want to take this opportunity to discuss some of the things I've learned in my time in Congress, and a few thoughts on how the work that happens here and how it will happen in coming years is going to be absolutely central to how our nation moves forward and succeeds. In my 12 years here in the Capitol, I've prided myself on the relationships I've built, on the bipartisan nature of them, on working together. I've been found to be one of the most bipartisan members. My friend Heidi, who's down the aisle here, who gave a wonderful speech this morning, was my partner on so much of this. And we would never have been able to achieve for Hoosiers so much of this without bipartisan working together. My friend Todd Young is across the way, the other senator from Indiana. And our focus has been, how do we make life better? Whether it meant assisting constituents, resolving an issue with a federal agency. In one case, a pizza parlor owner came up to me. He was 90 years old. Now he's 93. And he said, "My street light is out. You're my senator. It needs to be fixed before the big game this weekend." I called the mayor. It was fixed. And he was asked that weekend, and he said, "Of course I got it fixed. I called my senator," is what I did. So we're multitasking in this job. But it's to make lives better. I was blessed to work with my friend Ron Johnson, senator from Wisconsin. We worked on legislation called Right to Try. What it means is giving people who are very sick the chance to get medication they needed. We were told, there's no shot. This can't get done. We had 0 votes at the time. When it was done, we had 100. 100. And so a young man from my state, Jordan McClin, has the chance to get the medication he needs now. People all over the nation do. So other kids with Duchenne's muscular dystrophy can also get help. Other people with ALS can also get help. That's the purpose of this job, is we work for them. I was able to get more than 50 provisions signed into law over the past 6 years. It was only possible because I worked together every day with every senator. Friends like Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski, who when the government would shut down, we'd work to end it. We became like a regular group that we had. Every time it shut down, we'd work to open it back up again. And you learn from other members, like Roger Wicker, who I worked together with to end military suicide. We've not been able to end it yet, but we sure work on it every day. And learning from other members and hearing about the difficulties people in their states were facing and working together to address common challenges. You can be from Idaho. You can be from North Dakota. You can be from New Hampshire, Indiana. But we all have the same challenges. And all of us worked hard to get here. And our job should be not worrying about politics, but worrying about making lives better. Partisanship gets us nothing. Division gets us nothing. You know, I was thinking the best way to explain this, and it's this. When a fire department goes to a house, they don't ask if the person living there is Democrat or Republican. They're just there to help their neighbor. No soldier has ever asked when they're in a foxhole fighting their way out, where do you come from? What party are you? What's your religion? What's your ethnic background? You're Americans. You're in this together. You have each other's back. And as an institution, the Senate must be a place that we can be all proud of, that promotes that sets the example. We want our children and grandchildren to follow. It means getting to know one another. It means listening to other perspectives, to other experiences. One of the things that amazes me the most, and when I was out campaigning and going to town halls, I would never fail to be astounded by folks who came up and said, "You didn't do this one thing I wanted, so I'm really mad at you and I'll never support you again." I said, "But we did 19 other things." He said, "But I didn't get that one." I said, "Apparently you're not from a family of 5 children like I am. 5 children and 2 dogs. So when there were 7 pork chops, I was the last to wind up with one. And so if you're someone who needs 100% of what you want every time, this is not the place. This is a place where we can get 70% to build America, to make it a better place." The rhetoric, the divisive rhetoric, the political campaigns, increasingly funded by tens of millions of dollars, anonymous, dark money interests, is really doing damage to this country. You know, I've always been for campaign finance reform. The reason why I wasn't very good at raising money, which I wasn't very good at, but it was because people ought to have a right to know who's talking to them, who's standing up for what they have to say. And I've always believed if you have something to say, you should be willing to put your name on it. And I'm concerned by our inability here to tackle serious long-term issues. My friend Heidi touched on it. Our obligation as public servants is to leave a country for our children and grandchildren that's in better shape than we got it. It's the most basic promise that we make. My wife Jill's dad was a Guadalcanal Marine, and he was wounded in the South Pacific. And I told him, "You're our hero." He said, "No, I was born at the wrong time." But I said, "But you're still our hero." And he said, "Look, I did my job, which is to leave for the next generation a better country than was given to me." And so that's what we're supposed to do. And my friend Michael Bennett has talked about this a lot. But we have a deficit right now, $21.8 trillion. I had a look because it was, I think, 21.7 yesterday. This deficit is going to destroy everything we're trying to do in this country. And we have done next to nothing to address it. I looked, and my friend Chuck Schumer can probably relate to this the best. But there's an old cartoon. It was Popeye. And Popeye had a friend named Wimpy. And Wimpy loved hamburgers. But Wimpy never had any money. So Wimpy's famous saying was, "I will gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today." That is the American government today. That we do things, we don't pay for any of them, but someday we will. But that someday is this. My friends, Jordan and Peter Hanscom, just had a baby boy about 5 months ago. You know what he was born into? $67,000 in debt. And it is because we didn't have the responsibility to pay for our bills. At the end of next year, 2019, the deficit's going to $23 trillion. It is on an unstoppable course unless we do something here to be at $30 trillion. And so what did we do here? We passed a tax cut. Because what's another $1.5 trillion? A tax cut at a time when we have a full employment economy, a strong economy. We pass a tax cut, and we're now running in a great economy over $1 trillion deficit every year. If we can't balance our books now, when are we ever going to do this? And right now, we're on a course that within 10 years, the interest payment will be almost $1 trillion a year in interest, which is unsustainable. Admiral Mike Mullen, chairman of the Joint Chiefs, in 2010, when the deficit was $14 trillion, was asked, what's the most dangerous thing to our national security? China, Russia. He said the debt, because we can't pay for anything. And if we can't pay for anything, how am I going to protect the men and women who serve this nation? So we have serious work to do. A way to do it, my church back home, St. Anthony's Church in South Bend, Indiana. I know, an Irish kid going to St. Anthony's. You have to question it sometimes. But at St. Anthony's Church, we were running up a debt. And we were solving it by adding more debt to fix the debt we had. And a new pastor came in. And he came into the pulpit one Sunday, and he said, here's the deal. We are not spending anything we don't have anymore. We need to have the revenue to match what we want to do. And the things we want to do and can't pay for, well, we'll continue to want to do them, but we won't do them. And magic occurred. We balanced our books. The parish went on. It got stronger. And all of a sudden, we were in the black. We as a body here do not have the right to tell CJ, that little boy, children being born today, we don't have the right to financially cripple the country they will be inheriting. We had ancestors who fought for this nation. I think of my Uncle Tom, who fought with Patton in North Africa, who gave everything they had. His Purple Heart is in my office, has been there every day while I've been here. That they sacrificed everything. The least we can do is pay our bills, is to not give out crazy tax cuts that we can't pay for, is to make sure that we balance our budgets. We're better than this. And we just have to have the ability sometimes to say no. To say no to things that you know common sense-wise you would never do with your own checkbook. Or if you did, the end would not be very pleasant on that kind of thing. If we continue doing these things, this amazing and wonderful place that I've been part of with the most amazing colleagues, that's the part that's been so great, is every colleague, one's better than the next. But this is a long-term threat to this democracy. and to our country's success. We can do better, and every one of you can lead on this. Too often what we watch in our politics doesn't reflect the spirit or the values or the diverse coalitions of Americans that has made this country so successful. It's not the type of example we want to be leaving for our kids. I will tell you what is the kind of example we want to leave. It's when we do great, great things. When we looked up and we saw our country in trouble. I had the privilege to represent Kokomo, Indiana, back in 2008, 2009, when the economy collapsed. And we had a transmission plant. We built all the transmissions for all the Jeeps in the country there. That's why I drive a Jeep. But those wonderful people, we went from over 5,000 to less than 100. To less than 100. And they counted on us. And we came together. And we said, we can do big things. We can get this done. And President Obama, I told him, Chrysler's going to make it. He said, how do you know? I said, I lit a candle at Mass. Does that work? And he laughed. He said, well, maybe not, but I will give it a shot. You have to have faith in the people of this country, that if you give them a fair shot, they can get it done. And as an institution, we came together, Democrats, Republicans. My friend Fred Upton from Michigan lives right across the line. Together, we got it done. That plant that had over 5,000 people working there, and then less than 100 when we crashed, has over 9,000 there today. Because we looked at each other and said, it's not about Democrat or Republican. It's about making sure that mortgages can be paid, that these people won't lose their houses, that we can continue to make great products here in this country. I think of health care. And I often think maybe this is why I wound up here. A friend of mine, Al Gutierrez, who is the CEO of St. Joe Medical Center in Mishawaka, called me up after we had so many problems getting it started. But he called up a couple months later and he said, I just want to fill you in on something that happened. We had a big meeting of all the brain trust. It's because we've had so many terrible heart cases come in. So many people who were sick that have come in. And we're trying to figure out what has gone wrong that so many people have had bad heart cases recently. He said, so we had the CFO, the surgeons, the this, the that. One person at the table raised their hand 5 minutes in and said, it's the first time they've ever had insurance. They could never afford it before. These are our working families where moms and dads who would be really sick had this amount of money. And it either went for the tuition for their daughter at Ball State or to get well. And parents always take care of their kids first. And they looked at each other and said, well, that's the end of the meeting. Because they could get health care for the first time. Every town hall I've gone to, and it's not unique to me, it's to everybody, it's to all our members, Republican and Democrat, I have people come up and say, the health care bill saved my life. I wouldn't be here otherwise. I have one family, triplet girls. They were born at 6 months, came out of the hospital at the 10th month. Their hospital bill when they came out was $5 million. And the mom and dad said, we would have lost everything, and we don't know if our kids could have made it. But the health care bill saved us. The health care we had saved us. That's big stuff that we do right. And it's not perfect. And that's where we have to come together, not to attack things, but to fix things, to make things better. Most everything in this world never started out perfect. You fix it a little bit here, you fix it a little bit there, and you can get there. And so when I saw those families, I thought of all of you because you gave them the health care. You gave them the chance. I think of my friend John McCain, who's not with us anymore, who stood up and said, I'm not going to worry about party. It's country first. And when he did, he made sure that those people could still get health care. It's every senator's job to work toward those goals until it's a reality. And I know it sounds naive, constantly working together, but we can, and we must. And we know from recent experience there's a lot of things we can work together on to be more functional, to be more productive. And one of them is the chance I've had to work with our men and women in uniform. As a member of the Senate Armed Services Committee, Chairman Levin, Chairman McCain, a wonderful ranking member, Jack Reed, who's here with us today, Chairman Inhofe, being able to advocate for those service members is one of the most amazing responsibilities we could have, that they have everything they need. They're mostly in their 20s. They're defending freedom in every corner of the globe. They give us the ability to be safe, to live in our houses. I remember going to Khost Province in Afghanistan, right by the Pakistan border. And the Indiana National Guard was there. And I said, what message do you want me to take home to your families? And they said, tell them we got this. We know how to do this. And tell them we're going to make sure that they're safe. That's what these men and women were about. I had the privilege of going to Iraq with Kirsten. Same message from amazing people who gave everything they have. Everything. And I think of the first 8 months I had in Congress. It was in 2007, and things were in flames. And our district in Indiana, as many of our other states are, we have a lot of people who serve. Per capita, we're about first in National Guard people. And in 8 months, I lost 8 young men. It was losing one every month. And last year was 10 years later. And if you want to know the awesome responsibility we have, all of these young men we lost, those children that were 2 and 3 and 4 and 5, they were 13 and 14 and 15. And I saw their folks, I saw their mom. And they'd say, the moms would, they want to know what their dad was like. Because he's not here anymore. And tell them what a hero their dad is. What an amazing person he is. And so we've tried to work not only to keep them safe, but to stop military suicides. I worked with the dad and mom of a young man, Jake Sexton, who took his life on his second tour when he came home for R&R. He was home near Muncie, Indiana, and he just couldn't go back and took his life. His dad called me and said, can we do something? I want Jake's death to mean something. And so all of you helped me, and we all worked together, and we made it so that every service member could get an annual mental health assessment, and that they wouldn't be punished for doing it. What I mean by that is they wouldn't worry that they won't get the next promotion, that they won't get the next step up. And I remember 4-star General Joe Votel, who came before our committee and said, I want everybody to know that I've sought mental health. I'm a 4-star general, and we're in this together. And so every branch of every service, every member can now get an annual mental health assessment. You help me give them the chance to do this. And we have to also make sure that as we do this, we help them transition back to civilian life. One of the other things the Indiana National Guard told me in Afghanistan, as I was leaving, I said, what do you need? Trucks? Vests? Better MREs? They said, no, we just need a job when we go home. So we need to make sure they have that chance, that we stand up for our veterans. We've been able to get a new veteran center in a number of places around our state because we promised them we'd be there for them. And we have an obligation to keep our word. And I know that Johnny Isaacson and John Tester work every day to make sure that they can get it done. The work that's been done by all of these people takes your breath away. They don't get paid much. They're in the most difficult places in the world. And when they come home, all they ask for is a decent job, decent health care, and a chance to see their family survive and do well. As I said, I think of those young men and women every day. And when you want to know what progress you've helped us make, when Kirsten and I first came in together into the house, we were losing almost one every month. Now, it's not perfect. The world isn't perfect. But most of our young men and women are home. We do the best we can to keep those countries safe, to keep our country safe. And together we can continue to improve on it. One other thing I want to mention is, and Heidi talked about it today, this past year, we've lost 70,000 young people to drug addiction. 70,000. It's become more than car crashes. It's become more than anything else you can think of. 70,000 people. Opioids, meth, fentanyl. It's the whole batch. And we can try nonstop to help, to provide hope and purpose and dignity where they may not be feeling it. One kind word, one bit of assistance, one bit of encouragement. I went to an event in Indianapolis, and it was an event for families who had lost someone and families who have someone in rehab. And a young man came up to me from one of the wealthiest families you could think of, doing really well, the whole family. I saw him there and I said, "Mike, who are you here for?" He said, "Me." Me. He'd gotten hurt, had received an opioid in treatment, and was in this spiral that was nonstop. And his mom was there with him, and she said, "I don't think I've slept a night since." And so we can do this together. One of the things you just did, we just passed a law allowing FDA to give early approval to non-addictive painkillers, so that when somebody's hurt, they don't wind up getting hooked or getting addicted. But I am telling you, this is a 5-alarm fire. In my state, well over 1,000 died last year from this. All parts of the state, all towns, all areas, rich, poor, doesn't matter your religion, your race, anything. This is the great danger that parents need to be worried about, and that we can stop, and that we can provide hope and purpose and dignity. That's what we have to do, because these are moms and dads and brothers and sisters and sons and daughters. And when you lose one, your family is never, ever the same again. I've seen the faces. I've met the families. I spent time with them. And the Senate can be a place that when we work together as a team, Pat's seen it in Kansas, Johnny's seen it in Georgia, that when we work together as a team, that we leave name calling out, that there's no division, that there's no agendas other than making it so that every kid can come home safe every night. Before I finish, I'd also like to thank so many wonderful people. I've met so many friends, so many opportunities, traveled to places I could never imagine. You know, we used to have a saying in Indiana, the only places you could go to on a Codell are places that you could get killed. I was able to go to Afghanistan, to Iraq, to South Korea. I say the first part as a joke. The second part is, it was because our young men and women were there. And they were there keeping us safe. And all they ever wanted was a chance to represent this nation that they love so much. Those wonderful people. I want to thank the folks who work here in the Senate, who have done so much for all of us, who, when you talk too loud, will lean over and tell you, the whole country is hearing what you're saying right now. You then quickly move away to the back. For their hard work, for their dedication. To the committee staffers who have helped shape policy and to ensure we can have robust debate and oversight on the big issues of our time. To the Capitol Police, our friends, who have been so amazing to all of us, who protect us and keep us safe. To the cooks and the cleaning teams and the building maintenance folks. I think my office was painted every month for the last 6 years. The whole gang, you make this place work. You make this nation work. I want to also thank my staff who are here on the floor with me. And no, Heidi, you were wrong. This is the best staff in the Senate, who have done amazing work, who have every day made me look better and smarter than I am. I'm incredibly grateful to them. They've resolved thousands of cases. In 2016, we received about 350,000 faxes, emails, letters, combinations. We had an election. In 2017, we received 1.5 million, 5 times more, with the same amount of people who sent every letter out on time, who followed up on every call, who repeatedly were there for the people of our state so that they knew their government cared about them and loved them and wanted their lives to be better. I couldn't do this job without them. And I also want to thank my family who is in the gallery. My children, Molly, her husband, Mike, my son, Joe, my wife, Jill, who has been through all of this. I remember we had a family dinner, one of those summits that you have around the table. This was back when I decided to run for Congress. I told my family, I said, "What do you think? I've been asked to run for Congress." My son said, "That's the worst idea I've ever heard." He was close. But they've been on this journey with me for 12 years. And it's been an amazing journey. And I want to thank everyone from my state. What an amazing privilege to represent them. And I remain optimistic about the future of our country. But we have to take these issues seriously. Our country is filled with hardworking, decent people who just want us to do common sense things. I've been privileged to travel all 92 counties, all over my state, all corners of the state. And I think Indiana's best days are ahead, and our country's best days are ahead. May God bless all of my colleagues here in the Senate with the wisdom and courage you'll need, because we don't just lead the nation, we lead the world. May God bless and protect this institution, Indiana, our country, that we all cherish and love so much. This has been the privilege of a lifetime. For a person whose family came off the boat at Ellis Island, my grandmother's passage documents said she had $10 and her occupation was made. But she believed in America. She believed in this amazing country. And we've been privileged to help lead it. And it's been one of the greatest privileges of my lifetime. I yield back. Thank you.